Part 49. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 481. In the kingdom, there are very few opportunities to see gods. Gods do not belong to the main material world. Even if they want to pass on messages, most of the time they will pass on messages through their apostles. Similarly, there are even fewer opportunities to see the Lord of Hell, unless they have developed a strong enough force in Hell. In front of them is the phantom of a rarely seen Lord of Hell. He has a majestic body like a titan, and his whole body is protected by pure purple multi-layer armor, including his eyes, with no part exposed. It feels like a sculpture, with a huge body and exquisiteness, but the strong pressure prevents them from getting close. Just as they were wondering what the appearance of the Lord's phantom meant, suddenly, the other side began to speak. "Stop moving forward, Lord, this is not where you should come. The remaining two soul centers are no longer here. They were taken away by two mortals." "Can you let me know who did it?" Shen Xian asked. What he was most puzzled about was why mortals could break into the dangerous place where even the evil camp had to stop. "It's the Eye of Judgment. They put 3 soul centers in Cloud City. Do you understand?" The voice of the Overlord sounded like teasing or unscrupulous. In short, it made people feel very uncomfortable. He made him disappear, and a light curtain immediately appeared in front of them, blocking their way forward. "But, what is Cloud City? Just let us run away like this? The Overlord is too arrogant. Have you heard of Cloud City? What exactly is that place? Is it the newly built fortress of the Pharaoh Empire? It sounds awesome when you hear the name. Or is it the name of a wizard tower?" The remaining 4 chattered, looking ignorant, but the New York soldier was more skilled and searched the rankings, and actually found the result for him. Cloud City, there are 82 player territories called Cloud City, the highest of which ranks 262nd in the comprehensive rankings. Could it be referring to it? It's possible. Search the rankings 1 year ago, Shen Xian ordered. The New York soldier then mobilized the National Power Yearbook that was only available on the website and found the ranking of Cloud City. Number 3,232,083. This jump is really scary. The city lord is called Rookie Pig. I haven't heard of him. The New York soldier touched his chin and searched again. This time it was the information of Cloud City and Rookie Pig. Soon, a series of related articles popped up. On the theory of RP invincibility tells the story of Rookie Pig receiving a unique continuous task of up to 20 steps, and then how he became so successful. It seems that he wants to show off to the players, but he is not afraid of being harassed by the players. There is also a more detailed Cloud City diary, which describes the specific data of Cloud City's daily construction and development, territory development progress, etc. The players quickly searched for the relationship between Cloud City and the Eye of Judgment, and indeed found some clues. There are statues of more than 10 gods in Cloud City at the same time, and all the names of the gods under the God of Justice can be found. What kind of place is this? Generally speaking, even in a god system, a city will not worship gods like this, unless there is something hidden. I think the soul center is in this Cloud City, but this player is too stupid, right? Doesn't he understand the principle of not putting all your eggs in one basket? There may be some special reason, maybe it's the NPC's decision. You know, there are only 2 possibilities to rise in a short time. One is that the NPC arranges a series of difficult tasks, and the other is a huge cash exchange. The Rookie Pig is obviously not a rich man, so I think the NPC has a lot of say in Cloud City. The players speculated and began to discuss their plans, and Shen Xian glanced at the structure deep in the storm abyss, and vaguely felt that it looked like an altar. What is inside? Why would the master stop them from moving forward? Is there another secret? If there is, it will probably be the biggest mystery in the country. Even the master tried to hide it. Maybe one day he will return to the storm abyss again, and he will solve the puzzle. Cloud City is not within the territory of the Pharaoh Empire, but located in the southern border area. In a small country, because of the addition of Cloud City, even the status of the king has become much more important. Cloud City is not just a player's city, because it is the station of the third night of the Eye of Judgment, the Titan Knights. 30,000 knights with an average level of 65 live here, waiting for the Holy Land to dispatch them at any time. This is why a small Cloud City can win such a high ranking in the comprehensive rankings. How to enter is a problem. The strict defense system and the proficiency in purification techniques have added difficulty to their actions. Maybe they should find a thief who is good at this. However, the players present are not thieves, but they have the skills and experience of thieves. They observed the patrol route, building furnishings and city defense layout, several conditions that are important for their infiltration, but found that they would encounter patrols if they wanted to pass through the gate of Cloud City, which was built on the back of the mountain and located on the waist of the mountain. The patrol route is very perfect and seamless. I don't know if their actions are noticed by others. His Incarnation and Chris closely monitor the occurrence of uncontrollable factors. For them, they just need to do their best. It was drizzling, and in the humid south, the mountains were still covered with trees. The Knights of the Titan Knights, known as the proudest knightly order of the Holy See, lived up to their title, standing there with their heads held high and their chests puffed out, like big roosters. This group of knights from all over the world are mainly nobles from various countries. The lowest is a knight, and the highest is even the son of a duke. Although it is boring in Yunzong City, the pseudo-girl guild stationed in the city every day is the most able to satisfy their desire for the opposite sex. NPCs are not qualified to explore the gender of players. Facing a group of elves with gorgeous clothes, delicate skin, and exquisite faces, I am afraid that normal men have forgotten to ask their gender. It is really pitiful. Looking at a group of NPCs being attentive to a group of real men, a group of players flirting with NPCs, hoping to get the favor of which NPC and worry-free from then on, even the well-tested Shen Xian can't stand it. The predecessor of the pseudo-girl guild is the transvestite guild. It is a group of players who like to use female characters in the game to deceive the favor of men with excessive hormone secretion, but their real identity is male. They are not like ordinary players who use female characters just for the purpose of experience and eye-catching. They can be said to be rats crossing the street, but existence is reasonable. It is incredible that such a player group has a history of more than 70 years. Shen Xian mobilized 5 people, and 5 people were enough to calmly retreat against tens of thousands of troops. Now, what they needed was to find the place where the soul center was kept. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 482. Although no one can avoid the devil's skills of tempting people, the failure rate of believers with firm faith will be greatly increased in confrontation. If a level 100 unit tempts a level 50 unit, the success rate can maintain a 90% success rate, and the success rate of tempting a level 50 believer will at least drop by 30%. They could not get the information they wanted by tempting the NPCs in the city, and they could not find it in the 2 articles of the Rookie Pig. After all, they were only recently discovered. However, they were very confident in their hiding. Even if they stayed in Yunzong City for a few days, they would not be discovered. They had enough time to prepare. Get the map of the city first. Chen Xian felt that this was the first thing they had to do. It was impossible to give it to the ogre. It was very unusual for aliens to appear in the city. The players who were sent were good at dealing with people, and they were the ones who got the internal structure of Yunzong City. After lurking in the shadows for a few hours, the player came back. Thanks to its late rise, it did not have the messy structures of other cities, and the legacy of history, so it was easy to distinguish the various structures of the city. The fortress is divided into 3 layers, just like the Peak Fortress, The mountain is hollowed out, and each layer is completely supported by stone pillars. The bottom is the residential area, and then the middle is the trade area. The special geographical location makes this place an excellent trade destination. A large number of noble children live here. There are no less than thousands of merchants who live in the hotel for a long time. You can imagine how high the annual expenses are. The top layer is the fortress part. The exposed parts include the gray-brown rock fortresses, a total of 3, where several Titan night patrols are stationed, with a total of more than 600 people, an average of 70 levels, with very good vision and large catapults for defense. The longest range can reach tens of kilometers and can cause more than 1,000 area damage. In addition, there are 2 barracks, which are the main force of the Titan Knights. They usually stand guard and take turns on duty, and the rest of the time is used for training. The more dangerous ones are the 3 small magic fortresses suspended in the air. Combined with the magic skills passed down by the dwarves, the fortresses can be made weightless and fly in the sky. They are connected by the magic bridge of nothingness. There are always learned mages stationed there. With the cooperation of apprentices, they can release high-level magic close to his level many times in succession. The closer to the soul center, the more Shen Xian can be sure of its existence. He walked through the superstructure inadvertently and easily found the resonance from the soul center. The 3 soul centers are likely to be divided into 3 parts and placed in 3 fortresses. In short, it is difficult not to alarm others. Continue the investigation. We need to know the personnel structure of the Titan Knights and what bosses are in the Cloud City. The players searched in batches and did not encounter any obstacles along the way. This time, the Order Association, which has always been able to predict their actions, showed no signs of tipping off. NPCs are definitely not good at playing tricks. After all, this does not conform to the setting of the fantasy world and is not the main content of the game. It reflects a strong AI. It is troublesome to find out the distribution of NPCs in Yunzong City. After all, due to personnel changes, information is often outdated. Not only that, recently, there are a large number of mysterious messengers in Yunzong City, which greatly increases the number of investigations. However, if we can master the above information, we will know ourselves and the enemy, and will not be blocked by accidents. If the plan to seize fails, it is likely that the next time we'll have to wait for a few months. I heard that Wallace's envoys will arrive in a few hours. What do you think about us playing their roles? Wallace is a country of undead similar to Honghuang. What is special is that they call themselves Forgotten, a special group that cannot be taken away by the god of death but live in the main material plane. Calling them living dead is almost the same. In the camp detection, they are in the neutral camp and have been fighting against Honghuang, which symbolizes evil. Therefore, most churches on the continent, including the Eye of Judgment, recognize their existence and occasionally interact with them. I'm afraid we don't have the breath of the dead. No, the New York Soldier and the Alaskan Cod have it. You are holy spirits. As long as you wear the token, no one can deny your identity. And the NPC will not detect our level, but will only judge our camp. They will not worry because we are a group of level 130 players, Shen Xian said. They are players. After they die, they are restricted from logging into the game for 3 hours. During this time, we can move freely. We can split into 3 and act at the same time to avoid accidents. The key to seizing is whether it is synchronized. Only when the 3 places are lost together can the effect be achieved. Otherwise, it will alert people and force them to use force. The remaining 3 players appeared as followers. With their disguise level, no one could see the problem at all. Then, not far from the Cloud City, Wallace's envoys approached slowly in the undead carriage. They were attacked unexpectedly. Not far from the city, several players were killed, including the diplomatic documents proving their identities, which fell into the hands of 5 players. They disguised themselves as envoys and returned to the city openly. Because they were covered in black robes, no one could clearly see the appearance of the envoys, which made things much easier for them. A group of residents who were watching the excitement leaned against the 2 sides of the street at the bottom floor and watched. With members of the Titan Knights guarding both sides, there was no need to worry about any accidents. The convoy passed through a small residential area along the street and arrived at the 2nd floor. It was much more spacious here, even exposed outside, like a patio, casting beams of light, making the dim space much brighter. They were received by Wendane, the deputy leader of the Titan Knights. It seemed that Wallace was not taken seriously, and it turned out that a deputy leader came. In fact, what they didn't know was that Wendane had been responsible for handling diplomatic affairs with the Kingdom of Wallace. No one knew such a contradictory country better than him. Wendell reached out and held the New York soldier's hand, only to find that his body was hollow and empty, like a pure ghost. He looked a little puzzled, but still said, "New York soldier messenger, nice to meet you." "Hello, Captain Wendell." The New York soldier intentionally or unintentionally gestured with his jeweled skull scepter as Wallace's messenger, and at the same time, slowly released the power symbolizing the glory of the gods. Wendell smiled and said with some understanding, "Sorry, there are still a few days before the meeting. You might as well stay in the city first. I will send soldiers to protect your safety." They found the most luxurious hotel in the city and stayed in a semicircular guest room. The problem was that although they could walk freely, they would be accompanied by soldiers along the way. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 483. The knights who received them were the knights who were most proficient in noble etiquette among the Titan knights. Their behavior could make you find nothing to be dissatisfied about. In any case, it would not make anyone angry. Being able to be received by such a group of knights, no matter what, although it caused some problems in their capture plan, it can keep people in a good mood. They spread out, and in the next half-day, they followed the knights' footsteps and visited the surroundings of the city, as if they were not worried about any accidents. Even if Wallace's undead players were resurrected and they wanted to return to Cloud City, they would need to. The time is more than 2 hours. Ambassador Lord, Chen Xian's new name. This is the 2nd floor of Yunzong City. Here you can buy anything that is only available in big cities. In a place like Wallace, I think supplies are very scarce. Right. Shen Xian glanced at the goods in the city. They were indeed very rich. There were even goods from other continents, and even some rare items. It was precisely because of the presence of the Titan Knights that so many merchants regarded Yunzong City as a place for money. Heaven. The knight introduced him to various facilities in the city, even bars and casinos that operate special services. Although he showed envy on his face and had no real intention to enter, it is conceivable that the elites of the Titan Knights are strict with themselves and have strict requirements for themselves. Very high. It was really a difficult group of enemies to deal with. Shen Xian wondered whether the undead still needed such a rich supply of living things. He just pretended to be curious and recorded some places that he had not been able to check before, and then followed the knight to the 3rd floor of Yunzong City. Their first stop was one of the fortresses on the 3rd level. The fortress is indestructible, with about 120,000 external health points. It can withstand fierce attacks from level 10 single-target magic and at least 100 attacks from siege weapons. As long as there are workers to maintain repairs, the building's health will not decrease. There is a squadron of 40 knights guarding the inside of the fortress. They are the most elite group of Titan knights, so the average level is over 70. Recently, due to the convening of a meeting, Several small countries in the south will have a secret negotiation with the Eye of Judgment, so the number of soldiers in the fortress has increased a lot. Once an alarm is issued, the soldiers in the fortress can arrive anywhere in the surrounding area within 1 minute. This is the biggest problem they have to guard against. They must not be blocked. The way Shen Xian envisages escaping is to leave from the air through the Shadow Dragon. The Shadow Dragon is currently lurking in the mountains several kilometers away from Yunzong City. Anyway, the level 110 Shadow Dragon usually has nothing to do underground, so he just needs to take advantage of it. After visiting the fortress and then the military camp, he finally proposed to visit the magic fortress not far away, hoping to familiarize himself with the terrain when capturing it, so as to avoid taking the wrong path and wasting time. The knight looked embarrassed. "Ambassador Lord, please forgive me, the magic fortress is not under our jurisdiction. It is inhabited by the mages from the Tower of Silence, so it is not easy to deal with." "Really? Can't you even request to come in and take a look?" Shen Xian tried to use his charm technique to improve the NPC's favor towards him. Although he could not control the NPC and force him to do things he didn't want to do, after the charm spell was released, the NPC's favorability towards him increased to 75. So, the knight saluted and respectfully agreed, "Since you asked, I will try to complete it." Several people slowly approached the magic fortress. The size of the magic fortress is almost the same as that of a third-stage mage tower. It is 5 stories high and has a horizontal area of several hundred square meters. It is unknown what will be inside. "Guys, don't you know that this place is not under the jurisdiction of the Titan Knights?" Several mage apprentices shouted arrogantly at them, and the timid ones quickly summoned arcane guards to stop them. "Mr. Wizard, this is Wallace's ambassador. There should be no danger in visiting." The knight still maintained his grace. He vaguely knew that there was a very important treasure stored in the magic fortress, but he didn't know what it was. He felt that nothing would happen. Danger? Danger exists all the time, Mr. Knight. The apprentice glanced at Shen Xian. Is this guy really an ambassador? Could he be a spy sent by the enemy? Yes, if it is convenient, please let me visit. The next one is also a mage and has great respect for the Tower of Silence. Shen Xian looked at the 2 magic apprentices, a strange light flashed in his eyes, and his pupils turned purple. But it recovers instantly. However, the system prompted the 2 mages to be successfully affected by the charm spell, temporarily increasing their favorability by 35 points and 38 points. Well, the teacher is not here. If I want to hurry up, it doesn't matter. What do you think, classmate? The 2 apprentices' arrogant expressions changed and they asked each other like pugs, shaking their heads as if to please the special envoy. The knight felt very strange, but did not see the problem. Did these weird mages take the wrong medicine? I also think that, after all, Mr. Ambassador is a magic lover and his wish should be granted. Shen Xian would not waste time, smiled slyly, and followed them inside. The internal structure of the fortress was no different from that of the mage tower, except for the large magic circle in the center. It is the magic circle that maintains the energy of the fortress. If it is destroyed, the weightless environment will disappear, and the fortress will fall from the sky and become fragments. Therefore, there are the most arcane guards around the magic circle, as well as a considerable number of magic traps, to prevent special circumstances from occurring. After the auxiliary skills were improved, Shen Xian knew the magician's tricks very well. After a rough observation, he was secretly surprised that it was indeed a complex and sophisticated defense. If he invaded rashly, there was no way to complete the seizure work in a short time, and it had to be completed in 3 places at the same time. However, now that he knew it, he was no longer afraid of the challenge. He also sensed the approximate location of the special energy emitted by the soul center. Through the skill of perspective, in a very inconspicuous room, the soul center was stored in a magic treasure chest, monitored day and night by 2 second-level magicians, and a great magician commanded the overall situation. Once a problem occurred, the remaining 2 soul centers would be transferred immediately. I believe that the New York soldiers also gained something. Now everything is ready, only the east wind is missing. A loud trumpet sounded in the distance, Shen Xian's expression tensed, and the knight immediately explained kindly, "Ambassador Lord, the envoys of Emale and Oda have arrived, and the meeting will start soon." Shen Xian's expression returned to normal. "Really? Sorry, I have delayed you for so long. It's getting late. Let's go back." Dusk slowly descended on the surface world, and the magic lights in the Cloud City slowly lit up, decorating the city into a dreamlike world. Under the beautiful night, more than 10,000 knights still maintained a vigilant look, distributed throughout the city to maintain the safety of the meeting. Wallace's envoy is seated. Emale's envoy is seated. Oda's envoy is seated. Cloud City Lord Rookie Pig is seated. The herald standing in the palace shouted, and the elegant players and NPCs who mingled in the upper class entered the most luxurious rock palace in Cloud City. The system prompt sounded. The world quest, Forgotten Memories began, triggered by the players in Cloud City. So, in the south where the undead were rampant, the players began to discuss how to deal with the terrible conspiracy of the prehistoric world and the Black Emperor and the Black Moon Lich standing behind them. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Buledin Lao Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 484. In the Battle of the Chaos Secret Realm, Dusk City and Hong Huang teamed up to release the Black Emperor and the Hell Lord. The 2 Demon King level boss were enough to cause a bloody storm on the continent. After a period of silence and deliberation, the Black Emperor and the Black Moon Lich finally joined forces. Begin to get angry. The content of the world mission of Shadow of Death is that the Black Emperor's undead army has come to the world again, thus bringing endless disasters to the peaceful world. The south was the most severely affected area. The sky and the underground were filled with undead. Several small countries were swallowed up, including not only the Hong Huang family, but also countries established by several students of the Black Moon Lich in the underground world. The total number of 5 million undead makes the South China Sea Alliance and surrounding players extremely frightened. Therefore, the starting point of the meeting is to unite all parties. The Rookie Pig sat in the position of the City Lord, looking down at the envoys from various countries below. The leader of the Titan Knights, the deputy leader, is by his side, and the rest include Wallace, Emale, and Oda, the 3 special envoys of the player kingdom. The lowest ranking Alaskan cod sat there bored and had bad luck, so he could only become a spectator. The meeting was confidential, but there was no need for Twilight City to provide any information to Hong Huang. No matter what he said, did it have anything to do with Twilight City in the north? Although they are led by the Eye of Judgment, they may not have the energy to fight on both sides against the raging natural disasters of the undead. The wilderness has developed from the distant coast to the depths of the continent. If you want to expel them, you will undoubtedly have to pay a high price. While the participants were discussing, no one discovered that Wallace's envoy was actually the holy spirit of an ogre. Meanwhile, the magic fortress. Shen Xian took advantage of the cover of darkness and approached the fortress. He killed 2 level 23 apprentices one by one, ordered a devil to dispose of the bodies, and then swaggered into the fortress. If it were a war, there would be knights of the Titan Knights everywhere. It would not be so easy to protect the fortress. But now, except for the arcane guards, there is no one else. They kept their chats private so that they were in sync and there would be no surprises for either party. Follow the passage you just walked through and follow the marks on the map. There are no more protective technologies in the fortress, and there are not even illusions that are miraculous for thieves. People who put the soul center in the magic fortress never thought that they could find it. Bar. It was not Shen Xian's nature to underestimate the enemy. He carefully bypassed the patrol route of the arcane guards and entered the spiral staircase. He approached the location of the soul center. There was no sound inside, and the door was pushed open with a creak. Two level 60 scholars stood up. Just as they were about to make a sound, they were immediately stunned by the control skills and unable to move. The soul center was not far away. However, he noticed that the magic treasure box used to store his soul center was painted with complex marble-like patterns. There should be protective magic in it. On the bodies of the two intermediate mages, traces of the detection technique have been found. Once dead, the archmage responsible for monitoring will immediately discover it. The room was filled with red smoke, and only Shen Xian could see it. What the detection technique saw was that there was no movement in the room, and the two mages were completing their duties seriously. He needs to wait. In the other two places, players do not have the convenience of Shen Xian, who can directly sense the location of the soul center, and can only rely on clues to find it bit by bit. Everyone present, the number of undead in the south has exceeded 30 million. If we don't stop them, no one will be able to stop them. The representative from Imel cried out about the results of being ravaged by the undead. Because of the prehistoric times, they had lost hundreds of thousands of legions and were facing the fate of national subjugation. Alaska Cod listened with boredom, and there was no trace of it from his expression and behavior. Not respectful, so no one noticed him at all and discovered his identity. The Eye of Judgment still has the evil in the north to deal with. Nowadays, it is difficult for us to prevent the further resurgence of evil. It is very difficult to implement a specific rescue plan. The Grand Judge of the Eye of Judgment talked eloquently above, but even so, because it needs to involve all planes, it is impossible to take care of the overall situation. The New York soldier was in another fortress. After undergoing the Holy Spirit transformation ceremony, his resistance to attack was much stronger. Although he was still unable to compete with the gods, he had the conditions to defeat the demigods. His attacks are extremely powerful. He is a pure warrior. Walls collapsed under his attacks, dealing tens of thousands of damage each time. Not only that, but the damage also overflowed, causing the rocks to turn into powder, exposing the room. Scene. The building structure is similar, so the place where the soul center is stored is also on the 5th floor. As he approached step by step, the third player also reached the target. They started to check the time. They had 30 seconds and had to solve the problem within 30 seconds. Then, they rushed out and went to the predetermined location to ride the shadow dragon. The action begins. Shen Xian destroyed the trap on the magic treasure chest. The trap carefully laid out by the magician was still effective against units below level 120, so it was slightly better than nothing against him. As expected, there was the soul center inside. He grabbed it gently and put it into the package. He then moved towards the outside of the fortress. The other two players did the same thing. They cooperated tacitly, and the time difference between them was less than a few seconds. They first killed the guarding mage, then destroyed the magic treasure box, took away the soul center, swept through the fortress like a tank, and rushed to outside. As long as they don't exceed level 60, almost all of them will be instantly killed. It is precisely because of the short time difference that people are not sure what they should do, which makes people alert and even move treasures. Alaska Cod, who was in a meeting in the palace, suddenly requested to leave the venue temporarily. After receiving Shen Xian's notice, he rushed to the east of the fortress. Only a dozen seconds later, the city lord Rookie Pig received a private chat urgent report from the players, saying that 3 magic fortresses were attacked and the soul center stored in them was robbed. Hearing this news, the NPCs were extremely panicked. The leader of the Titan Knights immediately got up and dealt with it. Unfortunately, it was a step too late. Alaska Cod killed crazily along the way and killed all the knights who blocked the road and wanted to check him. He could kill a knight with at most 3 attacks. He had already left the palace hundreds of meters away. The unusual movement at the magic fortress must not be hidden from the knights who were still standing guard on the city wall. However, when they saw several players rushing over from a distance and prepared to stop them, most of them were killed in a few hits, causing only 1,000 or 2,000 damage to the enemy. All parties were mobilizing, and only a group of knights could stop the enemy's footsteps. However, when the knights in the barracks rushed out, they were still not as fast as the players. The 5 players gathered on the side of the fortress on time, and the shadow dragon appeared, carrying them all and flying into the sky. A light curtain appeared in the sky, blocking the movement of the shadow dragon, but just a blink of an eye, a terrible dragon breath, and a terrifying big hole was hit in the defense barrier that the magicians had hastily opened. Then the shadow dragon's body flashed and appeared a few hundred meters away. Unless it was a siege weapon, nothing could attack them. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 485. Shen Xian stood aside and observed carefully. The 3 soul centers plus the dead bead were like quicklime poured into water, undergoing drastic changes. First, they merged with each other and turned into a larger dead bead. Then, under the influence of the lines drawn on it, waves of terrifying energy fluctuations were emitted. With a creak, the dead bead was transformed into the size of a crystal ball, gray, and gave people the feeling that it was made of metal. The last step of work is needed to repair it. After all, the gate of the dead has disappeared in the hands of the gods for too long, and it is still relatively powerful among the artifacts, so the repair method required is very special. He took the incomplete gate of the dead to the other plane. The kingdom of Uluru. Looking at the 300,000 residents besieged by the devils in the royal capital, after more than 10 days of siege, the food reserves in the royal capital have basically failed. Now it is only a matter of time before the city falls. Several big devils are still building a magic circle. In order to complete a magic circle that acts on the city, a legendary great wizard at the demigod level has to spend a lot of energy, not to mention the Dusk City without a few great wizards. However, there was only one step left to repair the artifact. Each participant stood far away, looking at the strange magic circle that plunged the capital into a blood-red color, with only enthusiasm and excitement on their faces. The dead soul bead slowly flew to the sky and began to absorb the souls of the dead flowing out of the capital. However, there has never been a soul absorption that can be so spectacular. It seems that the world is about to be swallowed up, reflecting the capital into a complete red. The color of blood. Looking at the capital again, after the magic circle was activated, the devil army evacuated to a place 10 kilometers away, but no one could rush out. It was like a cage. The 300,000 residents in the capital were prisoners. Most people can see that the capital has been completely chaotic, even the soldiers and players are in chaos. On the streets, people are running around like headless flies. The blood like a flood hits everyone's vision. The sea of blood submerged the city and the residents. Under the planned massacre, life is so fragile. The blood and souls of the civilians were sucked out, and their flesh and blood merged into the sea of blood, raising the buildings. On the city wall, several sentinels held their weapons tightly with horrified expressions. Facing the blood that was like a raging wave, the blood that would flow, they retreated step by step, with their facial muscles twitching. Unfortunately, before they could escape, a group of red giant beasts emerged from the sea of blood and devoured them. Several players were still filming. Such bloody and real shots were rarely seen in the kingdom. They were the specialty of the evil camp. However, most of the players were excited, which was due to the human nature. They watched the civilians not far away being drowned in the sea of blood little by little, and finally flowed to the dead soul beads in the sky under the guidance of an invisible force. The completion progress was increasing, and the gate of the dead was being repaired. Even so, when the capital became a dead city, the repair progress had just reached 23.1%. According to the actions of the Sunset Cult in recent days, the remaining players of the three major guilds could not imagine what the opponents wanted to do. They fled everywhere, but where could they escape to? If they go to the south, the people in the south will not regard them as human beings at all. If they go to the west continent, it will soon become a world of devils, and they can be said to have no way to escape. However, the confidence of being hardcore players supports their decision and makes them not give up easily. They took people to the Tumen Kingdom. Unfortunately, the second target of the repair is the capital of the Tumen Kingdom. Looking at the dead soul beads that are several times more powerful than the power they emitted before, the presidents of the three major guilds seem to guess what the Sunset God cult wants to do. However, they still have no way to resist. Looking at the air around them evaporating, the flesh and blood turning into water, and the city turning into a sea of blood, there is only fear and awe in their hearts. The sea of blood once again visited the capital of Tumen, and 250,000 lives were killed in a completely unconscious state and turned into materials for repairing the Gate of the Dead. Repair progress 49.1%. The attributes of the dead soul beads grow little by little, exempting level 6 spells, exempting level 7 spells. The effects provided are becoming stronger and stronger. No one can stop it. Everything in the other plane belongs to the word destruction, and the gods don't know the existence of this place at all. Finally, after turning dozens of cities in the East Continent into hell on earth, the restoration of the Gate of the Dead was completed. Without the bulkiness of the Purgatory Angel statue, the Gate of the Dead was designed entirely for human use. It was light and small, and there was no need to control it at all. The Gate of the Dead, which knew how to identify its owner, was like a fairy lingering around Shenzhen, giving people the feeling that it was not an artifact at all. Its attributes were absolutely worthy of the word artifact. Gate of the Dead, artifact, defense 5000, defense enhancement 75%, spirit 9000, spirit enhancement 75%, condition 120 level, non-light camp, exemption from 1 to 8 level magic, divine spells or quasi-spells, natural destination, death penalty reduced by 50%, range 10 km to offset the opponent's magic ban effect, reducing the effect of healing spells by 75%, and invalidating skills such as resurrection and purification soul enslavement. The attacked, non-undead, will be transformed into an undead creature after death. Those who die near the treasure holder have a 7% chance of enjoying this effect and enjoying a second life. For specific transformation rules and attribute calculations, refer to the undead transformation. Skill Death Command, forcefully summon a level 150 demigod from the underworld of the God of Death. The attributes are roughly 3.2 million health points, 540,000 magic points, 112,000 attack power, and 71,000 defense power. It lasts for 30 minutes and the casting interval is 48 hours. Since then, the first place on the legendary treasure list of the kingdom has become the Gate of the Dead. Players around the world have different reactions to this. There are many envious and jealous people, and there are also admirers. In short, the artifact that topped the list has caused a long discussion about the artifact on the forum. Some people think that the artifact is at most an enhanced version of a legendary weapon, but this is not the case. A player holding an artifact is simply an indestructible cockroach on the battlefield, and the skills attached to the artifact are equivalent to the lowest level 12 magic and the highest level 17 magic. It is like a golden finger. It can either destroy a large army of tens of thousands of people in a short time, or make a demigod temporarily unable to participate in the war, or even make a country lose everything and cause frequent forest fires and mine collapses, blocking a country's economy. It's still a little short, although Sun also wants to have his own artifact. The artifact can be obtained but not sought, and most artifacts have the characteristic of binding and will not drop due to death unless it is a legitimate transaction. At this moment, many people on the continent hold the same view as Sun, envious but not jealous. The members of heaven regret that they could not prevent the birth of the artifact, but every member is actively preparing. They know that the world war is coming soon and all the players in the country are facing an ultimate challenge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 486. Every beginning must have an end, and the end is a new beginning. The world is reincarnated. In any fantasy novel, there is no shortage of worlds that use destruction and rebirth as themes to reflect this ultimate law. However, if it is a task, what will happen? What if there is such a continuous task with a difficulty beyond a hero level in the online game? The devil said that they were born for destruction. The masters of hell used their wisdom and power to plan one conspiracy after another. The Dark Age 10,000 years ago, the War of Depravity 5,000 years ago, the Doomsday War 2,000 years ago, the conspiracy was frustrated again and again, but their ambitions have not stopped, trying to bring the world back to chaos. Why do devils and demons have such a nature? No one can answer this question, or to answer it, we must first know how devils and demons were born. Are they the aboriginals born from the consciousness of the deepest part of the hell and the abyss of nothingness, or are they the masterpieces of some powerful people? If we know, perhaps the problem can be solved. However, the more we know, the more we don't know. The kingdom is just like the real world, always covered under gauze and never clear. Shen Xian has always felt that as an evil camp, there will be such a fate, just like the most important thing in Xiongguo is to face the calamity that occurs once every 5.6 billion years, which is the ultimate embodiment of the player's role-playing. Is evil just burning, killing and looting? Of course not. At this level, simple burning, killing and looting are meaningless. It is right for people to hunt animals, and it is wrong for animals to hunt humans. Everything is only for races. Each race has its own code of conduct. Those who conform to it are bright, and those who do not conform to it are evil, just like the relationship between humans and animals, and Shen Xian just stands on the opposite side of humans. Therefore, he became an evil camp. Only destroying the world is the ultimate challenge for the evil camp. Such an opportunity is rare, just like the conferred God. There will not be too many opportunities in any game, especially this one, which will only happen once since the end of the bloody battle. If the destruction will bring any impact, I am afraid he can guess it. The old pattern of the world will be completely broken, the country will no longer exist, the prestige of the church will be lost, and the main material plane will become clean like a formatted computer. However, this is not easy to accomplish, but he cannot refuse. The main server with artificial intelligence has evolved such a thing without any human intervention. For the evil camp, it must be said that they have an advantage in the general trend. Although the D Alliance itself is not stronger than the H Alliance. The Fallen Temple, the dark space is cold and deep, and the planes of the three masters are projected above the head, giving people the feeling that they are like pets being raised, and the three masters are the masters peeping at themselves. The Lord of Hell Ilkan Bella, the Tyrant Barossa, and other players. The King of the Chrysanthemum King, the largest Grey Dwarf kingdom on the second underground floor, the Dark Elf Elder and Decca on the third underground floor, and the commander of the Fortress of the Heavens on the fifth underground floor. The mission will be revealed. The square gathered most of the forces that surrendered to the Fallen Temple like a military parade, with a total of hundreds of people, many of whom have never been seen before. Directly through the system broadcast, the three masters announced the world mission, the pre-task content of the Second Doomsday War. Tip: World Quest, the beginning of destruction is open, and participants are players with the title of Earl or above in the Fallen Temple. Like every invasion of the main material plane in the past, destroying the main material plane can be regarded as the real conquest of the gods. There are countless other planes, but unfortunately most of them are small, or they are not important at all. For every world mission, there are always countless tasks that big forces can accept. Shen Xian flipped through a series of task descriptions and quickly selected them from them, and selected the task suitable for Dusk City to complete. Their war with heaven is essentially a war between the representatives of the two camps. In the ultimate contest in the material world, one side represents light and the other side represents evil. And the war between the devil and the gods does not need them to worry about. I believe that as long as the task is completed, the NPC will naturally direct this wonderful drama. The highlight of the pre-task is the war preparation work. Mission: Hell Gate, Ordinary, build the Hell Gate, small, according to the blueprint, which can teleport devils below level 90. Mission: Hell Gate, Elite, build the Hell Gate, medium, according to the blueprint, which can teleport devils below level 150. Mission: Hell Gate, Hero, build the Hell Gate, large, according to the blueprint, which can teleport demons below level 180. The above three missions are repetitive missions. Each time you complete them, you can get resources equivalent to 50% of the construction cost and corresponding contribution points. If there are enough, you can directly exchange them for artifacts. There are no more than 20 artifacts in the main material plane, but in Hell, there are still many. After all, the population base is large, the level is high, and the history is long, so the chances of artifacts appearing are naturally much greater. However, if it is just for artifacts, Shen Xian has seen that it is not worth it. The same contribution points are enough to exchange for a large demon army of more than 10,000 and more than a dozen legendary equipment. It is clear at a glance which is better. The purpose of building the Hell Gate is to allow the army of Hell to descend on the world. Most of the timid demon lords will not send their real bodies to appear, so as not to be destroyed by the incarnation of a certain god. Like the deal with Fenmai and the Big Five, he can get endless military support and attack other forces without restrictions. The heavy sacrifice is his soul, and the relatively light sacrifice is precious materials, interesting research objects, and other things that the devils are interested in. Whether hundreds of thousands of troops are equivalent to the player's contribution, the devil will not consider it with human values. Along with the Gate of Hell are scattered tasks such as tribute gold and resources. Every 10,000 units can be exchanged for a few points of contribution and reputation. The rest is to collect map data of various forces. As long as one is handed in, you can get hundreds to thousands of contribution and reputation. The first stage is relatively boring. Only after completing it can you enter the second stage. The tasks of the second stage are more colorful than those of the first stage. For example, attacking a certain place, looking for a certain treasure, and more complicated ones are to order players to develop subordinates in the hostile forces to facilitate future wars. World tasks cannot be hidden from anyone, so when the task begins, the players of the light camp have their countermeasures, and the gods will send their messengers to assist and do the same thing as them. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Buledin Lao Buledin Si Buledin Me. Chapter 487. Twilight City undertakes the task of a large Hell Gate. Medium and small-sized ones are assigned to the small lords below. Twilight City only supervises and does not need to contribute. Although the economic power of Twilight City is very strong, at the beginning of the mission, many players exchanged a large amount of gold through cash exchange to quickly complete the mission. There is a lot more data that needs to be processed every day. There are more than 100 Hell Gates that need to be built in the control area. Gold has flowed in large quantities, but other materials have not increased significantly. Therefore, the allocation of materials is extremely frequent, and there are many things that need to be done. The staff of the 9 major banks are also busy. The exchange rates of each bank are slightly different. Therefore, in order to compete for quotas, the banks have adjusted the exchange rate or joined forces with other banks to control the cash exchange in their country and transfer the exchange rates generated during the exchange process. Virtual funds and handling fees are collected. Even players who usually don't spend a penny have now invested thousands of dollars. After all, most people earn tens of thousands of dollars in salary every year and have no place to spend the rest after deducting the cost of food, drink, clothing, and housing. Medical care, education, and pension benefits are quite good in every country. Even in African countries that have been war-torn and impoverished, residents are guaranteed to have enough food and clothing. Kangdu Bank. Shen Xian's identity has not changed, just like when he and Miss Xiao first met, holding an extremely leisurely job. However, even though I work in a bank, no favoritism is allowed during the cash exchange process, and it is monitored by major banks. Even if Kangdu Bank wanted to open a backdoor to Twilight City, it would be impossible. The largest item in the Lock Consortium is Kangdu Bank, which has not yet been inherited by Miss Xiao. With the management experience in the game, at least you will not be fooled when inheriting the industry. You must know that although people's moral quality is improving, sin can never be eradicated, and the difference between illusion and reality is not that big anymore. In the virtual world, any experience you have can be used as an asset when applying for a job. Miss Xiao may soon take over Kangdu Bank, which means that in half a year, she may have to leave the country. This is a kind of growth, and Shen Xian knows it very well. Isn't the situation of the Lock Consortium as shaky as a door? The Lock Consortium has insufficient foundation and needs people to vigorously manage it. Xiao Yan has spent more than 30 years creating an entrepreneurial myth, and now it needs people to inherit it. You should not refuse based on circumstances or reason, not to mention that Ms. Xiao is very sensible, so her online time recently is basically only 5 or 6 hours, less than half of usual time. Therefore, in the first few days of the beginning of Destruction World mission, Shen Xian felt a little tired. Could it be that he missed a woman? He felt that he shouldn't be so immature. The decisive battle, indeed, after the decisive battle is over, he can relax a little. As soon as the beginning of Destruction World mission begins, the two sides will be dragged directly into the whirlpool of war by the system, and they will fight to the death. I wonder if someone arranged it secretly? The core technologies of Kingdom, such as artificial intelligence, long-distance synchronous data transmission, ultra-large-scale data cloud computing and other technologies are not owned by Xinhui Group itself, but are mixed with the hard work of the technical staff of Men and Heaven. What's more, every generation of first-level administrators is not a man of extraordinary talents. It is really appropriate to call him a demon. When it comes to his generation, he is confused and cheated out of a few lollipops, and he doesn't know what Old Man Wang is. How did he get himself out of the orphanage and become a second-level administrator? As long as the door can win, he can probably be promoted to the first-level administrator, truly master the key to the door's highest authority, and understand some unknown history. Other than that, there should be no other benefits. It's just that we don't know how long this war will last. In the history of fantasy, there are many wars that lasted for several months, and there were also many that lasted for several years and decades. This means that the outcome is not as simple as imagined. Only such a realistic war can be recognized by both sides. In the past, both sides have done things to make each other stumbling blocks. However, it cannot always be like this. It will only hurt both sides until both sides understand that heaven and the door are not feuds. But after the competitive relationship, the methods adopted have been relaxed a lot. No one wants to die. Not in the virtual world, but in the real world, several countries must be buried with them. They don't know how many people will die, but they know that many people will be unemployed. In such a developing world, the world will once again stand still. Will the war in the virtual world prove who is stronger? Is it technical or economic? Or maybe it's something else, it's hard to say, or even after so many years of discussion, a more authoritative theory has yet to be formed to prove that the power of the game level can be reflected in reality. But both sides agree that this method has been carried out for more than 20 years, from military, war and chess games to PK and business games, and the strength of both parties has been verified through highly realistic online games. To be more specific, the internal advantages and disadvantages of the game can test the player's reaction, overall view, strategy, vision, operation, and experience gap. The external advantages and disadvantages of the game can reflect the economic power, information power, and technical power. It's not complete, but there is always a certain truth to it. That's it. The winner gets the resources of the loser. As a way of saying about the victims of the past, it has been resolved from now on. It really feels like letting go of grudges with a smile. This kind of competition format has gradually been recognized and expanded, and it has become the ultimate platform for the two sides to fight. In the past, both sides who wanted to completely eat up each other agreed on such a duel. It can be said that Shen Xian didn't know what happened before. Too many secrets followed some people into the grave and became an unsolved mystery. Shen Xian went to work as usual. He occasionally asked for leave and no one knew his true identity. In the head office in Shanghai, early in the morning, there was a rare crowd of people. Everyone was trying their best to be appreciated by the top, which was quite lively. It seems that a big man is coming. Xiao Yan, the founder of the Lock Consortium, is a successful person who controls trillions of capital. His deeds have been widely circulated and he is the idol of most young people with ideals and ambitions. Xiao Yan has been waiting for an opportunity to make the Lock Consortium grow, and this time, the situation in the kingdom indicates that the opportunity is approaching. When the two powers compete, the various forces in the world also need to go to war, but it is impossible to protect themselves, so Xiao Yan surrendered his eyes to his competitors. As long as it is completed, his daughter's position will be much more stable. As for his grandson and his grandson's son, he knows that he has no ability to pave the way for them. As for his daughter's happiness, he had arranged it years ago. He saw Shen Xian's future and believed that they could fall in love with each other over time, and then it would come naturally. This is a gamble. However, looking at the current situation, it is more like he is throwing his daughter away. Therefore, even if he knew that Professor Wang's identity was extraordinary and he had just taken office, he did not take any violent means. He was very good at judging people. Some people are soft but not hard, so there is no need to make himself unhappy. He also kept Shen Xian in his company and got a confidential identity that only civil servants and scientific researchers have through his connections, so that ordinary people cannot get in touch with him. Love is a very wonderful thing, and external forces cannot interfere. However, Xiao Yan understands that the truth that the one who is close to the water gets the moon first is a truth that will never change. As long as his daughter is placed there, gold will always shine and will always be discovered. He believes that his daughter will never find a mediocre and incompetent person. His plan has a high chance of success. Now his plan is almost successful. As long as he completes this last step, he will take as much power, money, and talent as possible, regardless of success or failure. The war in the game has not yet started, but outside the game, the smoke of gunpowder has already filled the air. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lao Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 488. In the complex underground passage, the two players ran away in a hurry like bereaved dogs, complaining about each other. They stupidly accepted the gift of the Devil Lord and wanted to betray Twilight City. Not far behind them were dozens of shadow warriors. Their presence would be overlooked if they were not careful in the darkness. In addition, their super-fast movement speed was no slower than that of the cavalry. Almost every few seconds, the shadow warrior will take out the short crossbow from behind and attack. For elites, Long-range shooting skills are also a skill they need to master. After chasing each other in the underground world for almost half an hour, the two players were covered in red blood and exhausted. They gradually ran slower and slower. As the mayor of Twilight City, the punishment they bore was by no means simple. Death and rebirth can be offset. At such a moment, there is no need for a strict punishment system to dispel the idea of having double-hearted people in your heart. What may be waiting for them is more unscrupulous guys. Two players were knocked unconscious and were dragged back to Twilight City by the Shadow Warriors. In a prison, they saw dozens of similar players and NPCs imprisoned. Those who were tempted by the devil and attempted to betray Twilight City were all arrested. The warden Shadow Dragon showed a meaningful smile and imposed a confinement barrier on everyone to limit their movement range. Then, they will be captured tomorrow, executed in the open air in the main square of Twilight City. The players were shivering, screaming, and cursing in the cold, airless, and even rancid prison. They just accepted the mission of the Devil Lords and gained a little benefit for them. They didn't really mean to subvert Twilight City. It was useful. Using such a perverted method. However, their voices completely disappeared in the prison, and no response came from them. July 19th is a memorable day. A grand military parade will be held in the open square in front of the city center. The purpose of the military parade is to increase the loyalty of NPCs. Although it is temporary, it lasts for more than 10 days and is a very necessary way to consolidate strength. In the square, legions passed by on both sides of the avenue. Well equipped, they were no longer the rookies they used to be. The entry-level professions were completely abolished. Even in the new military camp, at least the first-level professions were recruited. From first-level wizards, swordsmen, knights, flying dragons and even priests unique to the Sunset Cult, the vast Twilight City has an astonishing number of first-level regular troops, as many as 400,000. The second rank is the elite. The total number of 7 elites is around 20,000. They are equipped with a full set of level 75 rare suits. The cost of creating an elite is close to 500,000. The third transformation has not yet formed a sufficient scale. Except for the Light of Darkness and the barely qualified Bloody Cross, the total number adds up to about 3,000, and the rest are scattered players. In the area controlled by Twilight City, among a population of 15 million including several recently surrendered kingdoms, there are still 300,000 relatively weak teaching soldiers distributed among various countries, ready to be dispatched at any time. Together with the armies of various countries, there is a total army of more than 1 million, posing a serious threat to the Pharaoh Empire on the surface. The mercenary army that walked through the street next was an elite group selected not long ago from the large Cry Guild. It has 30,000 people and is equipped with semi-excellent and semi-rare suits. The cost is 100,000. The components of one army will cost its 300 million gold. However, no one knows how long the war will last. After every life and death war, on average, one piece of equipment for each player will be completely destroyed, and 2 to 3 pieces need to be repaired. Therefore, it is necessary to prepare at least 2 sets of spare equipment in order to immediately after death and rebirth, you can change your clothes and go into battle. What then entered was the demon army developed by using the vast area of the alien plane. It was not the dark light of Iof, but the strong men in the Devil Paradise born based on the newly destroyed eastern continent. After the demise of Tumen and Uluru, this country's population jumped to 2.5 million, with an army of 500,000 low-level devils with an average level of 25. The stronger ones were selected from them, and an army comparable to the Light of Darkness was born. The Devil's Army. Legions passed by the road one after another. The armies of the underground city masters have always been composed of elites, because the underground world is barren and cannot support a large population. When the phalanx formations of the army are completed one by one, players who have opened their eyes will have something new to witness. Because the next step is the execution, you can see a person being sent to the gallows in exactly the ancient way. Players at level 50 and 60 will never be able to escape this kind of punishment. They can only suffocate and struggle a little bit, and finally experience the slow death. Feel. Before the execution, they even have to be replenished by the priest to avoid being accidentally killed by the gallows, which will not be effective. Unless the account is deleted directly, the controlled player has to play around like a puppet. Therefore, for most people, this opportunity is rare. There are quite a few players who try to betray Twilight City. At such a time, everyone wants to take the opportunity to rise up and accepts the temptation of the devils. In the end, they become a bomb lurking in Twilight City and will not switch sides and attack. However, at a special moment, they will become the biggest problem in the negotiations between Twilight City and the Devil Lord. Twilight City will be at a disadvantage, so it won't get many benefits and won't be able to ask the devil for more help. The square was crowded with people. The ratio of players to NPCs in the kingdom was 1 to 10. There were hundreds of thousands of NPCs and tens of thousands of players present. The army surrounded it tightly, and the magic tower was high above to monitor, so no one could do anything. When the army was ready, several small inferior demons escorted the players who were tied with iron chains and dragged them out of the prison like dead dogs. The players' blood was not full, only 20% to 30% of their health. The Dusk Chanter chanted spells, and several healing spells were cast, with hundreds of health points per second. After more than 10 seconds, the injuries on the players were restored to their original state. The players woke up. They couldn't see, hear, or do anything in their coma. Even though they knew they were not really dead, they thought of their fate and the shame they accepted. The dozen players who became criminals kept shouting and cursing. The great wizard in charge of supervision gave them a few rap curses unhappily, and the players immediately couldn't say anything. The players watching thought that this punishment was too shameless, but as spectators, they just talked to each other and laughed, without any intention of stopping it. All the players present were from the underground world. What terrible scenes had they not experienced? Bleeding, terror, oppression. Players who play Dungeon Master usually have a strong psychological endurance and know that the underground in the fantasy world should be like this. They come to experience the reality, not to watch a few inflatable toys that will not bleed, will not be dismembered, and are as docile as sheep and play with them. The first player screamed immediately after being sent to the gallows. His body twisted violently as if he was electrocuted and dropped at a speed of several hundred points per second. Finally, he died after more than 20 seconds. The second player saw this horrible look and immediately chose to log off. The offline character will not disappear when controlled. As long as he can avoid seeing the scene of being executed, doing so will be the best choice. The third, the fourth. After the execution, the loyalty of the shocked NPCs generally increased by 3 to 5 points. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online game Dungeon Master. Author, Bulletin Lau Bulletin Si Bulletin Me. Chapter 489. Among the crowd of observers, in addition to game enthusiasts who wanted to record this grand occasion, there were also many spies from various forces who were quietly observing. Attributes cannot be seen with the naked eye. In addition to the level and name, the health and attack power of the unit can be checked by using the True Knowledge or Thief's identification. Otherwise, it can only be estimated by the percentage of health. The avenue leading to the square is dozens of meters wide. Under the protection of magic, the casting distance will be shortened. Therefore, if they do not walk on the road, they will not be able to release skills. The videos of the players were directly played on the big screens of various forces through the video conversion program, as if they had personally experienced the power and terror of Twilight City. The audience who really watched the military parade will be millions. No one knows the real intention of Twilight City's move, the next plan, and whether it has accepted any mission. They guess that the forces surrounding Twilight City will be the first to be hit, such as the Vank family and the Morius district, both of which have had many conflicts with Twilight City. The players are guessing the fate of the two. Moreover, by then, not only the most powerful Dusk City in the evil camp, but also other forces will join forces to attack the majority of the light camp on the surface. Although, these days, players from the light camp have released their angels and apostles who have been blessed by God and sent down to protect the territory on the forum from time to time, the general feeling seems to be that the evil camp is more numerous and powerful. To the south are tens of millions of undead souls from the prehistoric world and several countries, and to the north are hundreds of millions of demons with the fallen temple as the core. Moreover, although the population is small, once the ratio of the army is high, there will be nearly 10 million troops that can fight. They are facing a choice between life and death. How will the gods help them? If they only pin their hopes on the gods, they will probably be disappointed. The gods themselves can hardly protect themselves, so how can they have the spare energy to take care of their believers? They can only rely on themselves, not to mention that the most serious situation is only the Night Star continent, and the remaining Broken continent and Far East continent do not have such a scene. They have to rely on the power of their allies. At this time, the past grudges should be abandoned. If they still keep thinking about it, it will be self-destruction. The large Hell Gate took a month to build. It can pass through demons below level 180. In fact, few dare to escape from the comfortable hell. Ilkanbella is a special case. This Hell Lord who has recovered to level 180 is worthy of being the strongest in the main material plane. He can forcibly resist the laws of the plane and even maintain this level beyond the limit. If he takes action, there will be no rivals on the continent. In other words, the meaning of his existence is to resist the gods of the kingdom of God from coming in the form of incarnations, and directly kill them before the incarnations cause catastrophic consequences. After completing the Hell Gate, it will enter the second stage of the beginning of destruction. In the second stage, the division of labor of players is more clear. Some are specialized in development. Because of the investment of cash, the development of a few weeks can be comparable to the past few months. Once the territory can accommodate enough people, they will get reinforcements from Hell through the task situation. Hand it over to the players to command. Of course, most of the mid and low-level demons that appear, imagine what will happen if the gods unite and attack Hell like crazy. Even if they perish together, Hell will be completely destroyed. After all, if you want to destroy a plane, it is not only the creatures of the plane, but also the existence of the plane. It is not impossible to wipe out. Legend has it that countless times ago, the abyss was not 7 layers, but hundreds of layers. It was because of the masterpiece of a certain god that the power of the abyss became weak. Moreover, the war between mortals and the war between gods and demons are not at the same level. Gods will not intervene too much, and demons will not intervene at will. Both sides must retain their strength to prepare for the final decisive battle. Many town-level territories have obtained tens of thousands of demon troops, with an average level of 30, which is equivalent to getting tens of millions of gold for nothing. Capable players in big cities directly persuaded the demons to provide them with technology, resources, and products, so that the soldiers' equipment can be updated and the combat effectiveness can be improved. More players reached out to the territory of the players in the light camp that they had been eyeing for a long time, harassing and destroying, but not occupying, probably because they were not prepared, so they won repeatedly, and each time they could get a lot of contribution points, which boosted the players' arrogance. The attacked players also complained on the forum and called for the support of strong men. Compared with the more active players, Dusk City is still preparing at ease, and if it does not move, it will be fine, and if it moves, it will make a big splash. In the second stage, he chose two tasks. The first one is the Lightless Land, contacting the Lord of Hell, and through cooperation, gathering at least 1 million troops from Hell, rewarding 30 billion experience and 80,000 reputation. The task is not difficult, that is, there is no risk. From the current comparison of forces, Dusk City has an advantage in the quality of its army, and God has an advantage in the number of its army. If Dusk City attacks, it will definitely not be able to take advantage. If it defends, the other party will definitely not be able to attack, and it will be in an awkward position. If supported by Hell, 1 million cannon fodder placed on the surface world will cause chaos throughout the continent, weaken the enemy's strength, and create the right time to attack. The second item, Manic North, heroic level, limited to 15 days, cooperate with the Art Council to conquer the far north, reward 40 billion experience and 160,000 reputation. I'm afraid no one would have thought that the starting point of the turmoil would be in the north. The purpose of gathering the army after the Dusk City parade was for this. The thriving Art Council will eventually embark on the path of militarism. After completing the task, the brave dwarf warriors will charge to the front line and fight bravely with the players of the light camp. There are 500,000 dwarf warriors in the north. After 50 hours of travel through the ancient passage, they will arrive here. Shen Xian is most welcome to let the dwarves rush to the front line. As for the reason, why bother so much? Dwarves have high health and high defense. Strong dwarves also have magic resistance. In short, they are very awesome and can reduce a large number of casualties of soldiers in Dusk City. And all they have to pay is to cooperate with the Art Council to conquer the north, and nothing else needs to be done. The second stage seems to be a very long time. Such a war is not included in the ultimate task, but still belongs to the pre-task. According to Shen Xian's idea, it can only be regarded as the ultimate when they fight with heaven with real swords and guns. Dusk City began pre-war mobilization, 200,000 regular troops plus 300,000 devil troops were ready to go. Most players believed that one of the Vank family or the Morius area would be unlucky, but the facts were beyond their expectations. Online game DungeonMaster. Author, Buletin Lao Buletin Si Buletin Me. Chapter 490. The evil army is gathering. In the dark and damp caves, the mountains and plains are filled with unpleasant and powerful atmosphere. Along the ancient passage, the black flags are fluttering and slowly disappearing. This is the first day of the march. Every soldier knows their fate. They are instilled with the idea that the world will perish. They are like war machines, meticulously executing orders, believing that the gods are the source of all evil, and the apostles of the gods are the root of the inequality in the world. Only by fighting for the sunset god cult can they be redeemed. The army rushed to the cold extreme north. When they arrived at the end after a long march, the capital of the Council of Arts, a war was waiting for them. The world of the gods, the place where the dwarf pantheon belongs, is the kingdom of Morden. Inside the two rock gates that transcend the sky is the temple of the ancestors, which symbolizes thunder, storm, and fire. There are 7 rock thrones, and 6 gods sit on the thrones. Among them, the second to last position on the left, which should belong to the Adventure Lady, is empty. The rest is the entire dwarf pantheon. Morden, the chief god of the dwarven pantheon, enjoys the supreme status among the dwarves and is called the Father God. The lines on his face are always so resolute, as if they were tempered steel, with a tenacious will. He always wears armor refined by sky fire, and is dressed in full clothes, like an unyielding warrior. The remaining 5 are the gods who control family, war, skills, desires, and knowledge. There is no doubt that something happened to the Adventure Lady. "What is Dalena doing?" the most irritable god of war asked the people below with a strong momentum. They have always imprisoned the Adventure Lady in a deep prison, just for fear that something will happen to her, causing the dwarven pantheon to lose a god. There are more than 100 gods in the several pantheons of humans, and there are not so many gods of other races. It can be said that the rise of humans is inevitable. The dwarves can no longer allow a god to fall. Even if she is corrupted, she must be kept in the kingdom of gods. She went to the netherworld to find her son, the god of desire, pain, said quietly, as if the adventure lady was not one of them. The remaining goddesses of family and the gods of crafts expressed regret respectively. We can't bring her back here. Yes, we can't act rashly. The devil's plan is aimed at human gods. If we participate, it may cause the dwarves to suffer losses like the last war. Morton warned in a stern tone, we can't afford casualties. Let Dalina go, I'm afraid she won't come back again. The gods made a decision to abandon their former partners. Perhaps they were both dwarves, but when the adventure lady was no longer an adventure lady and became a fallen person, the former feelings must be abandoned. Dalina, a goddess respected in the dwarf pantheon, was also the object of pursuit by male gods. Unfortunately, after being imprisoned by the devil during a journey to hell, she changed. Everyone can guess what happened. Because they didn't want to say it out loud and didn't want to shame the dwarf pantheon, the dwarf god chose to conceal it. Concealment is not a permanent solution. Now, giving up on her is probably the best solution. When the adventure lady came to the main material plane, a purge was taking place in the fortress. The fanatical dwarves drove the rune priests who mastered the faith together and prepared to kill them all. In the hall, there were many strong rune priests. They couldn't believe that the residents of the fortress would harm them, but they didn't want to wield the butcher knife against their compatriots. The two sides were in a stalemate. The gods completely abandoned the dwarves in the main material plane and ignored the dwarves' prayers. They would rather be a turtle to save themselves. This is the reason why the dwarf king Hammered succeeded. However, when the adventure lady's true body came into the world, the dwarves immediately recognized their goddess and knelt down devoutly. The adventure lady took out a sharp short blade and gently waved it at the rune priest below. Just like the night when Hamlet usurped the throne and became the dwarf king 18 years ago, a row of 6-digit damage exploded, destroying the rotten and withered, dust and smoke everywhere, and more than 100 corpses were bleeding on the ground under their feet. What happened to the goddess? Why did they massacre their compatriots? The rune priest couldn't believe it. No one survived the tragedy 18 years ago, and few people knew about it, so the tragedy happened again. Hamlet slowly got up and immediately announced that the punished dwarf was a traitor. Smiling, he walked into the temple with his mysterious mother, the adventure lady. This good show of turning black and white was declared over, and the dwarves who besieged the rune priest dispersed one after another, thinking that what the king said was the truth. As you can see, the dwarves have lost their simple, brave, and stubborn nature. Under the guidance of Hamlet, the Art Council has undergone tremendous changes in the past 10 years. Although the country has become several times stronger, the army has expanded several times compared to before, and the dwarves are no longer dwarves. Hamlet solemnly received the reinforcement commander Tujukan. He became a powerful player again. When he met Hamlet, he was full of emotion. In the past, he was the president of the Desert Border Alliance. Once the order was issued, who dared not to obey? He was a famous figure in the Chinese gaming industry and had been famous for decades. However, due to the competition of his opponents, his guild was disbanded. He chose to belong again with the players who still supported him silently, and found the hope of rising. He lived a busy life for 3 years, sleeping on straw and tasting gall. Now, although he was wearing the bloody cross, it was only his personal guard. He commanded an army of 500,000 and would participate in the war in the far north, making a key contribution to the final battle. Your Majesty, I wonder if you have thought of a specific solution? Barbarians, fishmen, humans, ogres, as long as we conquer the 5 major countries, we will win. Tujukan caught a glimpse of Ashoka, the president of the Maurya dynasty, who was standing beside the throne and winking from time to time. He wondered what the Indians wanted to do. They might not want to frame them, but they, Dusk City, also had a card in the north that could play a decisive role. Hammett said, "General Tujukan, we have just dealt with the hostile dwarves in the country, so we need to use the hands of Dusk City to capture the mountain tribe and the Howling Tower. After the reorganization is completed, the dwarf army will set out in a week to attack the remaining Walsh Kingdom and the Court Kingdom. If everything goes well, we will eventually encircle the most powerful Ice-Scar Knights. This is our plan. I will send someone to provide you with the latest situation of the two countries." On the other side of Hammett is Bitpig from White Isle. He cooperated with Dusk City during the last world mission of the North Rift. I don't know which camp he is on this time. Tujukan took the information handed over by Bitpig and glanced at it. The mountain tribe, the world of barbarians, the main villages are on the plateau and the ice peak, the combat conditions are harsh, the population is 900,000, and the number of troops is about 100,000. The Howling Tower, the Great Wizard Tower built in the name of the legendary Wizard Ace, around the Wizard Tower, after hundreds of years of development, a large city and dozens of villages have been formed. The country is not large in area, with a population of 500,000 and an army of 70,000. Don't look at the other two major countries, Walsh and Court, which have a population of 1 million and 1.5 million respectively, and 120,000 and 200,000 troops. In fact, in terms of combat effectiveness, barbarians and mages are the strongest. How to attack? Tujukan summoned his subordinates and studied the latest topographic map. It seemed that this was a war that was sure to win. The only thing to think about was where the Great Maurya dynasty and White Isle studio stood to avoid any sudden changes.